I'm delighted to say, as promised, joining us is Lions assistant coach Graeme Swann. He's often described as being the spin bowling coach, but when you know cricket like he does, you get involved in every aspect. It's been a very busy winter for the Lions, Swanee, with trips to South Africa and Australia. Hard luck. No, really. I mean, I know that coaching was something you wanted to get involved in for ages, and now that you're doing it, are you enjoying it as much as you thought you would?
You know what, Manus, I'm absolutely loving it. For so long, I just did media, and I thought that's all I wanted to do when I finished playing cricket. I couldn't stand the thought of actually, training and getting my kit back on. For a few years, it was just the last thing I wanted to do. But then it starts to eat away at you. I started thinking, I want to help out. I'd watch England bowling spin and playing spin, and generally I'd find myself itching myself to get involved. So being actually given the opportunity by Robert Key and Andrew Flintoff to do that this winter has been phenomenal. I've loved every minute of it. Just being on the bus, being around the team, and generally making a difference, or hopefully making a difference.
You are a dressing room person, aren't you? You are that larger than life character that everybody thinks is great fun and then want to kill you after about 20 minutes. Yeah. But you look at this England group and you look at the way there's only Adil Rashid here. England took 3 spinners to New Zealand, but they've only got 1 in New Zealand in India. But the cupboard's not bare. There are spin bowlers out there at this moment in time. They're just a little bit way off from an age point of view to where the England team needs.
Absolutely. We know about Shoaib Bashir. He came out seemingly nowhere to the untrained observer, like no one had heard of him, including me. A year before he was playing for England, he was this lad who played 2 games for Somerset Seconds or something, picked purely on potential, but he's got something, he's got an X factor that England have picked up on and said we want to work with him. He's had a great start to his England career. Farhan Ahmed, I've said this a couple of times, Rayan's little brother, who's an off-spinner from Nottingham, is unbelievably talented. I genuinely think he could be an international spinner for 15 years if he's coached properly, if he's treated properly by English cricket. And when I say treated properly, I mean if we start to understand spin bowling, because we still don't in England, in my point of view. The way there's always the blame early season. Well, you don't play spinners early season. You play on little green nibblers and bowl medium pace. Let's face it, people do that. It shouldn't be the way. If we're going to be the best England team and the best team in the world, we've got to move away from that. Play on proper pitches from the word go. Pick 3 proper quick bowlers and a spin bowler. That's how you win games of cricket.
What's the difference between England under-19s and the Lions? Because, there are 16, 17, 18-year-olds in the Lions team who could be playing under-19s, and they were playing concurrently. That's the first question. The second is, how do you differentiate between results and their irrelevance? Because they're not relevant, but then you don't want to send that message to the players that, don't worry about the results.
Yeah, well, the first point, the 19s, I think there's a lot more crossover these days, because I think what Robert Key's done, and done really well, I know he's a mate of both of us, and we knew he'd do this, he doesn't care what people think. He doesn't care what the general view of it is. He says, if these kids are good enough, I don't care if they have to go through a different channel than they used to. Get them involved. Get them coached by the best people and get them in the England team, make England better. Which is the common sense approach, and that's why it's strange, because common sense doesn't exist in the world anymore, does it? We all know that. And so there have been times in South Africa, the 19s were in Stellenbosch, possibly because we knew they wouldn't go to the vineyards, and the Lions, we were in Cape Town, but there were days when we'd go and steal 4 or 5 of them. You come and train with us for the day. And I think the way you find out whether someone's good enough is you put them against better players. And straight away you saw Rocky Flintoff stood out, and there was probably a bit of reluctance from some people to actually introduce him to that standard, to the Lions standard, thinking it's pushing him too early because of his dad's name. But straight away he proved that is absolute nonsense. He was one of the best players, full stop, in both the camps. So I think that's a great way. Archie Vaughan as well, keep your eye out for Archie. He's a very talented batsman and bowler, and a spitting image of his dad. Not just in a slight way when he bats. He is Michael Vaughan reincarnated out in the middle. And let's face
hopefully
it,
his body's better than Michael.
Yeah, his knees are better, but let's face it.
And he can catch it better. I've seen him from a slip catcher the day. Vaughan, it's slip, it just doesn't work.
Has there ever been a player with a better batting record with a worse pair of hands than Michael Vaughan? I'm sure he won't mind me saying that.
I don't think so. No bowler worth their salt would run in and bowl with Michael Vaughan in a catching position. But Vaughan, you mentioned Vaughan because we had a journey where we went on an air tour, and then, which was, the air tours back then it was classed as the next best. So we went to Zimbabwe and South Africa, didn't we? And it was the next best in some parts, and then some young players. And then we went on an academy trip, the National Academy had a trip, which is the interesting one for me, which that was picked on players who England had identified that were going to play in the next 2 to 3 years, not necessarily next year.
Yeah.
So from an Ashes point of view, or from Indian series point of view, there's maybe 1 or 2, i.e. probably the bowlers that went to Australia. But it's more in 2 to 5 years' time. If you think that National Academy trip we went on, I think it was in 2000 or 2001, and in 2002-03, quite a few of that trip made their England debuts.
Well, basically won the Ashes in
Won the Ashes
2005.
and
The
went
bowling
on.
attack was yourself, Fred, and Simon Jones, all
on
on that academy trip.
And then you took a little bit longer to get in the team, more from the fact that you and Duncan Fletcher had a little bit of a different relationship than me. And
I had to wait for Duncan to be fired before I got back in the team.
but when you look at that trip and you look at the trip that you've just been on, there's a lot of similarities on it, because you weren't picking a group out of the next best from county cricket. Rob Key, you're right, don't care what anybody thinks, and it's about the pathway. And their pathway through was not necessary to be in the England team next year, but in 3 years' time, quite a few of these lads will be knocking on the door of English cricket.
Yeah, they are, and that was the bit I was going to get to, man. It's about results. And because of that, if you're picking a team where like 2 or 3 players, Hamza Sheikh has barely played a game for Warwickshire, and yet his potential has been spotted that he's virtually an England batsman already. England think we could mould him into a player very, very quickly. County cricket actually might slow him down. So, you know, he went on the trip.
Ben McKinney as well.
Ben McKinney.
We're talking in the England team who are probably, if there's a spot opening up in the Test team at this moment in time, it'd probably be at the top.
Absolutely, and Ben McKinney would take it, trust me. I mean, I love that kid. He's a Sunderland fan that I can't get my head around.
I can't get that.
But I mean, apart from that, there is not a single downside to him. He's a young man who, I mean, he was at Sunderland Academy playing football, and he is so talented. You see it in everything. When we play like little games of pig and keep you up and everything, he's phenomenal with the football at his feet. He's a phenomenal athlete from a point of catching the ball and the way he bats, the way he moves. You know, he's not as fit as probably 90% of cricketers, but he's getting there. He realises he needs to work on that, and he's in really good shape now. He, in my view, could easily walk into Test cricket now and do a very good job. He reminds me so much of Stephen Fleming, the ex-New Zealand captain and brilliant player, actually the best player and captain I played under at Nottingham. He's superb. McKinney is a young version of him, so keep your eye out for him.
I find it slightly disturbing that county cricket seems to be being marginalised, if that's the right word. But I mean, I do feel for players who are pursuing a traditional path to the top, to higher honours, and you know, you sort of get the impression that if you're entering your 4th or 5th year in county cricket and you haven't received a telegram, it may not ever come.
I don't agree with that so much. Look at Sam Cook at Essex, who's been brilliant for 5 or 6 years now. He's the leading bowler nearly every year, or well up there. I think he gets closer and closer each year. He is going through the traditional channels, so to speak. He was on the A tour. He was our best bowler. He will get in. But then you've got Sonny Baker, who has not played a single game, made his first-class debut on the Lions tour against Australia A. And if you watch him bowl, you won't believe how good he is. He's 90 miles an hour. He takes it away. He's fit and strong, but he's had a few injuries here and there, and he's not been rejected by county cricket, but he just didn't fit into the template that Somerset needed. And so he's not played a game. Had he been at a county like Northampton or Leicester, who would be desperate for a 90-mile-an-hour fast bowler, he'd have played 2 or 3 years solidly. So there are different ways to get in the team. And I still think, if you are in county cricket, if you're scoring runs or taking wickets in the way that selectors think, well, that's what we need in the England team, there's still a way in. If you're scoring them or taking wickets in a way that isn't going to work in international cricket, then you're probably not going to get selected. It's as simple as that. You don't pick square pegs for round holes.
And we'll talk about specifics, and I was intrigued by, I wasn't surprised, but I was intrigued by the test match that England played against Australia here. I mean, Josh Tongue batted 7, you picked basically a team full of bowlers, but then bowlers are the ones that are probably next cabs off the rank when they go to Australia next year. So how did Tung go? Because I would imagine he'll be touch and go with a visiting party to Australia. How did Shoaib Bashir go? Because his wicket column didn't look that favourable. And there was one or two others, the likes of John Turner, and one or two others. You mentioned Sonny Baker. There's one or two others out there from a bowling point of view who I think this A Tour was designed, or Lions Tour was designed for, with one eye on the Ashes going forward.
Yeah, absolutely, you're right. Josh bowled brilliantly, to be fair. Considering he's been out for so long with injury, this Josh Tung on about, and came back having barely played any cricket. He is very close to being back to his best. Very hard on himself. Was really despondent after the first innings, especially. Really despondent, and I thought he bowled well, but his own levels are that high that he said, no, that's not good enough. I need to be better, which is a brilliant attitude from a quick bowler. Sonny Baker blew us away by his fitness, the way he thinks about the game, his overall pace, the way he carried on. So he's definitely up there. Sam Cook, in the right conditions, will play for England, I'm sure of it. He's a brilliant bowler. And then Shoaib Bashir, who I work with solidly, because he picks up one or two things within the year that just crept into his game. Things do creep in at an international level because you're not practicing as much as you'd like. You're almost playing all the time. He just started drifting the ball in slightly. He was a bit square on, and we worked with him. He's so talented. He'd sorted it out in 5 minutes. He really had. And so he went through the tour. Yes, the wicket column probably didn't string out to everybody. Test cricket is very different. As a spinner, you don't go there to Australia and win test matches. You don't take 40 wickets, unless you're Shane Warne, bless him. R.I.P. Shane. He was the only guy who's ever done it in Australia. You go out there and you play a supporting role to a battery of fast bowlers. That's how you win in Australia. Your batsmen get 450, your seamers bowl short, sharp spells at one end, and your spinner bowls 35 overs and doesn't go for 200. That is, if you can do that, you can win. So with Shoaib, it's telling him not to worry about that end column. Worry about getting the shape of your ball right, getting the ball in the right place often enough. Don't be greedy. Wickets will come. You'll still pick them up, but don't expect to take 35 wickets. Because if we do that and say to him, look, that's what we expect of you, he's doomed, destined for failure, and we don't want that.
And just finally from me, how'd the big fella go? My old mate, Flintoff. Has he took to coaching like you expected him to? Because we've seen him get back on English TV just before Christmas in Bullseye, and that will be a lure for him to go back. But he seems as though he wants to do this coaching gig, and what you got coming up in the summer with the Lions, because I think he signed a 1-year contract, didn't he?
Yeah, he was brilliant. I mean, we know him very well. We knew he was going to be very good. I sometimes have to shake my head at the fact that Robert Key and Andrew Flintoff are two of the most important people in English cricket right now, and I'm involved as well. I'm waiting for you to get the gig, to be honest, Harmy, because we were always misfits, weren't we? And we were always on the outside of what was considered normal. And amazingly, Keysy being given the gig by Andrew Strauss, who you think would be the most down the line sort of old public schoolboy, we have to do things the way they did it pre-war sort of thing, opened up a whole new chapter for English cricket. And Fred's a part of that. He's brilliant. He's so good. I mean, his aura, we've always known about Andrew Flintoff, his aura is almost bigger than himself. He's a huge physical bloke anyway, but everything enters the room before Fred does, and he commands respect. It's very good, actually, because if you ever have players who are slightly not toeing the line or doing this and that, like young players do, sometimes through naivety, sometimes through belligerence, if I go and say something to them, I'll wind them up and they'll want to punch me in the face. And they probably could. If Fred goes and has a quiet word, that's done. They immediately say, yes, Fred, and they get on with it. So from that point of view, I think it does help having a huge character like him. I hope he doesn't get back and do TV.
I know it as well. I want him to stay with the cricket as well.
Yeah, because English cricket deserves him. He deserves English cricket. And he's terrible at darts.
Finally.
You hate me for that.
You need pliers to get darts out.
I will say this once. I once beat Fred. Do you remember?
He's a javelin dart player.
We were in India, and Harm used to take his dartboard every time, and we'd have a little tournament going. You got Harmison, Cook, Anderson, sensational darts players. Fred, middling. Me, rubbish. Truly terrible. And I beat him in this one leg, and I ran out of the corridor. I ran up and down. I was sorry to celebrate. Fred didn't talk to me for 2 weeks. And I'll be honest, I don't think he talked to me until the day I coached alongside him. He was still spewing about that, so can't be a bit of bully.